So Bitcoin has been pulling back for the last few days, and we had a pullback on Friday in the S&P 500. Let's take a look at those, and I also want to show you what I did on that pullback. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So, as everybody knows, Bitcoin has been pulling back. We were trying to keep this 71.5 line right there, and that's that red line. I was hoping to keep that as a good support line, but we did break below that around the 1st of June, and it just kept coming down. So where is the bottom? Well, let's take a look to see if we can find out where that support line or the next support line could be, because we seem to have broke past that 71.5 and it's just been falling. So if we zoom back and out a little bit, I do have a couple other lines I had drawn in here, and it looks like I've got this 59.2 and a 56.5 as two possible support lines. Now it looks like if we zoom back in on this one, looks like we did come down and test that line, and we are somewhat bouncing off of it a little bit today. Now I don't think I would take that as we have hit the bottom, as nobody knows, right? But it did bounce off of that line. Now how did I draw that line in? Well, that line actually has been there for a little while, and if we zoom back, and we got to zoom back a little ways here, but if I zoom right over here, you can see that is where I had drawn this line in at, as we did bounce off of it here, several times, right? We were coming down and touching that line and bouncing off of it. We did teeter back and forth on it here, but we were actually using more of this support line as a support line below that previous there. So it looks like these two support lines could be a good area for support. Now below that, if we were to draw in another line, you can see we do have something right through here, right? You can see it did come down here, it came down here and here. So let's just draw a line about right there. Because if I zoom in here, you can see we did come down, touch it, and bounced off of it, right? Here, we did show the wicks going through it, but the overall candle itself stayed above it. And right over here, looks like we tried to break below it, but then respected that support line. And that's roughly at about 53.5. So those are the three support lines that I'm seeing. A 59.2, a 56.5, and a 53.5. And if we zoom back over here to where we are currently at, you can see as we were moving on up, but then we started coming back down, and just the last few days, we have really come down a good bit. We are still trying to respect that 59.2 line, but just keep in mind, we do have other supports below it. And if we zoom on back, of course, there are others as well. But I'm hoping to keep this 59.2 as a good, strong support line. We're currently at a 60.5 at Bitcoin. So hopefully this 59.2 area right here, hopefully that is our strong support. And we can actually respect that and start moving back up, but only time will tell. We did have a pullback on the S&P. And if I look here on the S&P, you can see we had a pretty big drop on Friday. This thing dropped over 2.5%, and that was almost 20 bucks from time of open to the time of close on Friday. I think this, along with Bitcoin, has probably affected everyone's portfolio. And that's why you do need to make sure you have a plan. Because when you have these pullbacks like this, does that scare you out? Are you selling out of it because you're afraid of it going down to zero and losing everything? Well, if so, then you really don't have a plan set, right? Or you don't know the overall trend of, say, like the S&P 500. Because if we look at a 5-year chart on the S&P, you can see that overall it's moving up and to the right, right? Even on a 1 year after we had that big drop at March of 2026, it is still up over that 1 year period. So yes, if we do have a pullback, I'm not going to sell out. I'm riding it out, because what happens is when this thing starts dropping, just like it did in March of 2026, it started falling, right? People getting scared, jumping out. Well, at what point do you get back in, right? Because it's dropping here and then you get a green candle. Do you jump back in here and then all of a sudden it drops again? So you say, oh, I'm out of it again, you know, and you just keep taking losses. Where is that bottom? Well, nobody knows where that bottom is, right? No one. All you can do is ride it out and buy on the dip. And for a stock like S&P 500 or any of these big companies, it's not a bad thing to do, right? Because overall, in general, they go up and to the right. So if you're buying on a pullback like this, when it does decide to move back up, and as you can see in 2026, the first part of it, it did. It moved up, but it moved up quick. Right? So what happens is it starts dropping, and then when it starts popping back up, a lot of people say, oh, wow, you know, it jumped up from this 629 up to say 655. Well, if it drops back down to 630, I'm definitely going to buy it, right? But what happens? It never gets back down to 630. So you're continually to wait for another pullback so that you can buy, because you think now it's hit the bottom. But what does it do? It went from this 655 area and it jumped all the way to 675 in just a matter of 1 day, right? Well, at that point, now you're thinking, well, it jumped. It's definitely got to pull back. And when it does, I'm going to buy, right? Well, it doesn't. It just keeps on going. So now you sold out of it back here and you are waiting for the right time to buy back in. Well, looking back on the charts, it's easy, right? It's easy to look back and see when to buy. If I sold here, I know I need to buy here. But during that time, on that day, when that's the actual day of the trade, you don't know if that's the actual bottom of that downward trend, because all you're seeing is these candles and they are definitely trending down, right? So you definitely are going to wait until it decides to turn around. Well, it does right here, but a lot of times our minds kick in and we say, okay, it's definitely starting to move up. I'm definitely going to buy if we get another red day, because I like to buy on red days. Well, I do too, but you never really got that chance to buy on that red day. It just kept on going up. So what happens is you sold here and now you've missed on that whole recovery and then some. And it has definitely moved on up. So that happens, and that's why you continue to average in on that dip on these type of companies or ETFs like SPY, because overall it's going to move up and to the right. It's hard to catch that bottom, and anytime that you usually try to catch it, you'll end up missing it. Once in a while you'll get lucky, but a lot of times when you do get lucky, then you feel like you know how it works and you end up really missing out on some really big moves. So on the pullback of Bitcoin, what did I do? Well, I did decide to buy some more CONY. And why did I buy CONY? Well, simply because it is still below my real price per share. And by buying more shares below my real price per share only helps to lower that real price per share. And what is this real price per share I'm talking of? Well, that is this price right here on my spreadsheet. My real price per share being $30.79. And CONY, after this drop, is now at $20.29. I did make a couple purchases as it was dropping. So each one will help to lower that real price per share. And yes, I will still be down in that position because CONY is currently still down and it's at $20.29. And even those purchases won't take me all the way down to $20. but it will definitely take me below the $30.79. And we'll update this spreadsheet this weekend to find out what that purchase actually changed my real price per share on CONY to, and we will enter in those distributions to help find out what the new real price per share will be. And as you can see, ULTY actually had a dip as well. It actually dropped just below my real price per share, as it's at $29.84 and the current market price being $29.81, but I have not entered in that distribution. So if we made at least 3 cents, then I should be able to turn this one back to green. And that's why I always capture my distributions so that I can continually to lower that real price per share, because you never know when that underlying stock is going to cause the YieldMax ETF or any of these high yield ETFs to drop in price. And when it does, I want to make sure that I have been continually to lower my real price per share so that when it does drop, I can try to stay ahead of that drop. So that does help me out, and that does benefit me each time that I do capture those distributions. So I did buy more CONY, and that will lower that real price per share. And you'll have to wait until this weekend for me to update this spreadsheet to find out what that new real price per share is, and we'll be able to see ULTY go from red back to green again. Now, of course, if it does drop even further, maybe it goes back to red, but I'll be receiving more distributions, and if it gets low enough, I'll actually start buying more of ULTY to help increase that drop on that real price per share, so that when ULTY would move back up, I have even more downside protection. And we'll just scroll right over just to give a glance at what all the rest of them are looking like. And all of them are still green, except for CONY, ULTY, and WDTE. Now, CONY and WDTE have been red, and ULTY was green. Even though it wasn't green by much, it was green. But with this pullback, you can see I'm still green in my positions, right? Except for those 3. And with that big of a pullback, it is very comforting to see that I am still up on all the other positions. And ULTY, I'm right there on that line with that market price of $29.81 and my real price per share being $29.84. But I'm still working on CONY and WDTE to get those down. And if we look at CONY right here, you can see there's the RSI2, this yellow line at the bottom. And when it dropped below 10 on that RSI2, I bought, right? I bought some. And you can see that it gave me a few chances to actually buy. The RSI2 here is at 6.3, then it's at 5.56, but that was a green candle. So sometimes I don't buy if it's a green candle, even if that RSI2 is below 10, but it just depends because it could be dropping and that green candle could even be below the previous candle. But then on Friday, we had a big drop right along with Bitcoin and the market dropping as well. So you can see that RSI2 is at 1.65 right there. Now it looks like it actually ended up getting as low as 19.75. Wow, right? Now I was not able to buy them at 19.75 because I didn't see it at that price, right? I ended up getting it closer to this price here. It was actually slightly above it, but that's okay because it is still under my real price per share, which will help bring that average down. Now, did I buy more of WDTE? And here we are on WDTE. You can see we had a big red candle here, but that RSI2, it did not break below 10. It's sitting at 22.4, so I did not make that purchase. I will look to buy more WDTE if that RSI2 does drop below the 10, and if it does, I will look to buy some more WDTE to help bring down that real price per share even further on top of that distribution that I would receive. So I would need WDTE to come down just a bit more to break below that 10 on the RSI2. Now, you can see it has a long wick, so it's very possible maybe it did break below 10 at some point that day. But unless you're sitting and watching the charts, you can't catch every single one. So I will wait for it to come to me, and eventually it will. But by buying more shares of WHOI, it's only going to help lower this real price per share. You can see even buying at $27.86 is much lower than my real price per share, but I want to try to get it when it's having that big pullback. And that big pullback, and that's a short-term pullback on that RSI 2, when it drops below 10, that's a short-term strong pullback. And I want to buy shares at that point. Now, that's not guaranteed to mean that it's going to be below the current price here. I don't know. No one knows, right? I don't know the future, but I will wait for that to pull back below that 10 on the RSI 2. Then I'll purchase some more WHOI so that I can bring down this real price per share even more. But before entering in anything in, you can see even if I did close out all of my positions, I would still make $21,622, even though Bitcoin and the S&P 500 and a lot of the market had a huge pullback this week. So if you'd like to be able to track your high yield ETFs, to know what your real price per share is, to know where you really sit in your position, then come on over, join my Discord, where you can then find that link to this sheet in my Discord so that you can make a copy of this sheet and then enter in your own high yield ETF ticker along with your purchases, your distributions, and any sales that you make so that it will track what you actually have in that real price per share. Because if you don't know this real price per share, then you really don't know where you currently stand in these high yield ETFs. So come on over, join, would love to have you. And you'll also get notified whenever I make my trades on some of these high yield ETFs. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.